Hello YouTubers, this is me here once again with another one of my videos. Be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe down below. And today we are going to be talking once again in my movies you must see. This one's going to be Rope, directed by and produced by Alfred Hitchcock, released August 28th, 1948, starring James Stewart, Farley Granger, Dall, Joan Chandler, and many others. The plot of this movie is two young men strangle their inferior classmate, hide his body in their apartment, and invite his friends and family to a dinner party as a means to challenge the perfection of their crime. Now, this is a movie that Alfred Hitchcock himself called a disaster, hated it, prevented it from actually being re-released on ever again until he died, and then just about 10 years even after he died, they still didn't re-release it until then. Now, this is a very different movie in a lot of ways. This is Alfred Hitchcock having just one big movie full of just dialogue, which is a great film. Like, James Stewart is a phenomenal actor, same as Farley Granger. And also in this movie, it's not really said, but it's almost, are the two guys living together gay with each other, which it was suggested on IMDb that that could be the case. But even for 1948, that was still a pretty touchy subject there. The other thing about this is it's the only movie to take, there's only one scene in the opening credits, is the only thing to take place that's not in this big apartment, which is really weird. Didn't see it much. The only other movie I can think of where they spent a majority of a movie just in one room or one space is 12 Angry Men, which is a phenomenal movie featuring Henry Fonda. I'll probably talk about that one later because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Memorable moments from this. Right at the beginning, Philip and Brandon, they strangle David, pretty much strangle David right away, and that's how they show it, and then they go into some dialogue about it. And it always mentions, like, Philip mentions also in this that afterwards he's sort of afraid of Brandon. Like, he always scared him and all that, which is good. Which Brandon calls the murder an experiment to see if they can create the perfect crime, and saying stuff like the only mistake they can make for the murder is the only way they'd ever get caught is if they made a mistake and all that. Brandon decides somewhat in the movie instead to serve, because there's this table room, and then it goes into a living room or whatever. I guess you call it a living space or whatever, your couches and everything. And he decides instead, there's this chest where they stuck the body after they strangled it, and so they decide to serve it from there. There it is. Let's serve all the meal from here, from this chest. Now, Kenneth shows up first, who's a friend of them, and all that. Then it comes out that Brandon got Philip, who's a pianist, a gig at Town Hall. That's noticeable. Janet shows up next, who was Kenneth's ex and also Brandon's ex, and was dating David, the guy they murdered, to show up. And then Miss Atwater and Mr. Keatley show up next, and then you get all the people, and then Rupert shows up. But as soon as Miss Atwater shows up and says to mistakes Kenneth for David, Farley Granger's character Philip breaks the glass and it busts open his hand where he has to wrap it up and all that. And she mentions, like, oh, and he's just like, oh, the glass cracked. Uh, Rupert shows up last, played by James Stewart, of course. Jimmy Stewart's one of my favorite actors. Very distinctive. He also would later go on to do Rear Window with Hitchcock. What other movies? The Man Who Knew Too Much, he also did with Hitchcock. One of my favorite actors. He also did movies like The Naked Spur, Who Shot Liberty Valance, all that. Um, and then he talks about Philip, or then talk goes to Philip about strangling chickens, and it piques his curiosity because during it, like Brandon's telling the story of how he caught him, and one of the turkey or chickens rebelled and all that. And then Philip goes, "It's a lie! I never strangled a chicken in my life." And then it comes in later that it's like Rupert questions him about it. It's like, "You did. I was there." Uh, Brandon and Rupert go on their talk about murder. How one of the main themes in this movie is like how moral and social concepts don't apply to the intellectually superior, and that murder is an art form, not necessarily just something some people do. It could be an art form like music or movies, but nonetheless, it's still an art. But they take this over and to the point where Brandon starts really pushing his point hard, and I think it really did start to raise Rupert's curiosity, as if they did away with any inferiors. But Mr. Keatley also said that's enough, and it started to annoy him. Rupert becomes curious when Janet confronts Brandon, because David, like, this is Mr. Keatley, Miss Atwater, and Janet, they are all know David, and it's kind of weird that he didn't show up. That it's like, oh, well, he said he was going to meet us here, and then he never showed up and all that. And everyone's starting to get a little curious about it, so Janet confronts Brandon about it, thinking he had something done to him, and sort of laughs it off. Rupert then interrogates Philip, which is quite a use of psychology in the fact that he's playing the piano, and Rupert's just annoying him to the point where it's sort of the Columbo way where he confesses. And then the next great scene, this is one of my all-time favorite endings, is the monologue or the banter between Brandon. Well, actually, first I'll say that everyone leaves, and Rupert then left and called up again saying, "Oh, I forgot my cigarette case," but he actually didn't forget his cigarette case. He planted it there and all that, and it leads to this great thing where this banter between Brandon and Rupert about how he thinks he would have done it and everything, and then it goes on and it comes to this point where Philip, who's drunk, then grabs then he's like, "Oh," or Rupert mentioned to Brandon, "Oh, I see you have a gun in your," and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's just robberies up in Connecticut and all that, so we're going to my mom's house, so just thought there's been robberies up there, so I thought I'd just be safe." And after a while of banter, Philip, who's drunk, grabs the gun, and a memorable quote from this movie, it's like, cat and the mouse, who is the cat and who is the mouse?" And then proceeds to point the gun at Rupert and all that, and Rupert wrestles it away from him. And then this epic dialogue of he says, I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm going to open that chest. And it comes to a point where Brandon's like, "Fine, I hope you like what you see." And it shows the body, and this epic ending dialogue. I can't do it justice. I think I will actually leave a link in the bottom to the scene because I can't do it justice. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal scene. And yeah, so some memorable quotes from this movie. "Good Americans usually die young on the battlefield" was one. Also one was he was a Harvard undergraduate. might be justifiable homicide. And then another line is, determined to get drunk, are we? I am drunk. And then the cat and the mouse thing. This film, phenomenal, phenomenal film. Alfred Hitchcock, I don't get why he hated it so much. It was a great film. I think it was just for him. It wasn't maybe on par with some of his really epic movies, but this movie fit. It was so good. Like, I'd rank it probably in my top 25 movies of all time as Rope. It's a phenomenal movie. If I had to give it a grade, though, probably say a solid 7 out of 10. It's not a perfect film in some aspects, but for what it is, the minimalistic movies and all that in it, it's actually a really, really good film. I suggest watching it a lot. It's very easy. It's a very short film. In film standards, it's like only an hour and a half about. But yeah, so that's my thoughts and opinions on the movie Rope. Be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe down below, and also check out that ending scene. You can find it if you type Rope's ending scene or whatever. I might actually put it in the description bar there. But once again, this is me here, signing off. Peace.